My wife Jennifer and I have been together for 16 years, and every day of the journey has been full of love, adventure, and moments together. We met in a small town surrounded by green hills. At the time, I was a young dreamer who was just beginning to build my career with a local company. My family was very wealthy, so my father was helping me with the business. Jennifer, I met completely by chance, but I remember how much I liked her. She was working at the local coffee shop as a waitress at the time. I would come in for a cup of coffee every day just to see her beautiful blue eyes. It was the only way my day would get better. At first sight, I knew Jennifer was the woman of my dreams. I pursued her long and hard. Soon we started dating, and I found out almost immediately that she was pregnant. I was the happiest man on earth. A month later, we got married and started living together. Over time, our love turned into a solid and reliable family. Our days began to pass in a close-knit family circle. Every day I tried to show my love for Jennifer, not only with words, but also with actions. I tried to be attentive to her needs, making little surprises to make her smile even brighter. I was always very protective of our daughter. I supported Jennifer during the birth and after. I loved spending time with our little girl together and teaching her new things. I always tried to provide for our family financially. From the beginning of our love story, I set out to create a stable foundation for our future. I realized my professional ambitions and devoted a lot of time and energy to work to ensure our comfort and security. I have always been a person who strives for success and financial independence. I developed in my career, enhanced my skills, and earned decent money. That said, my goal has always been not only to make money, but to create prosperity for our family. When I built my small company, I met my future best friend Benny there. He worked for me as a general manager, and we quickly found a common language with each other. Benny bailed me out in various situations, and over time he blended into our family as a family friend. Later, Beanie introduced Jennifer and I to his future wife Emily, and we liked her and also blended into our time together. This is a married couple that has become an inseparable part of our lives over the years. We have been friends for so long that we are almost part of the same family now. Weekends and holidays became a special time for our friendly couple. We tried to meet as often as possible to spend time together and enjoy each other. Meetings became a tradition we treasured and looked forward to every time. When Friday came around, we were already starting to plan our weekend get-togethers. We exchanged messages and calls to pick the best places to meet or interesting events we could attend together. Sometimes we would just get together at someone's house to spend time in a cozy environment, talking, playing board games, or watching movies. The holidays became a special time when we bonded together. We often organized holiday dinners or parties together, where each family brought something special. We shared delicious meals, laughed, danced, and created memorable moments that were imprinted in our hearts. However, recent encounters with Ben and Emily revealed that they were having some temporary problems. Their relationship had become strained, and we felt it in our conversations and observations. Instead of the usual joy and cheerfulness, our meetings became marked by tension and silence. I was very concerned for Ben and Emily, and I want to help them through these temporary difficulties. Emily seemed to be very cold with Ben, but they never revealed to us the secret of their differences. So Jennifer and I decided not to get involved in their family relationship. As time went on, Emily showed up at our house less and less frequently, and did not come to our joint trips and holidays. On the contrary, Benny came to our house more and more often. I was not in any way annoyed by this. I understood how much he needed us to distract him from his family problems and negative thoughts. But I always had a lot of work to do, as I am a business owner. So Benny sometimes found more interests and common topics to talk about with Jennifer. We had been friends for many years, and I had known Benny for a long time, so it didn't embarrass me in any way. At first, they didn't get along with Jennifer. I would say the opposite. It took Jennifer a long time to get used to Ben's company, and she constantly spoke ill of him. She didn't like him from the first time she met him. It wasn't until years later that they were able to get along. I was glad that my wife and best friend were no longer estranged from each other, and felt comfortable in the common family company. But one day I noticed something amiss. As I was coming out of the shower, I noticed Ben's watch on the dresser in my and Jennifer's room. It couldn't be confused with anything else, as he had been bragging about this purchase for over a week. My mind filled with questions, and I began to wonder why it ended up in our house. It excited me, since no one had ever been in our room but me and Jennifer. I decided to ask my wife why Benny's watch was in our room, but she only brushed it off by saying that he had left it on the couch in the hall since last night when we were all relaxing together, and that she had put it there so she wouldn't forget it. On the one hand, that seemed like a good argument, but in fact I knew that Jennifer never put any things on her dresser. She always scolded me for any little thing that happened to fall into her sacred space. And here was a stranger's thing in our room and on her favorite dresser. Ben and I were close friends, but we've been at odds lately. I tried not to think about possible suspicions, but the presence of that watch made me a little uneasy. I began to notice some strange signs in Jennifer's behavior that were causing me some anxiety. Lately, she had started taking more time for her own business and spending less time with me and our daughter. Her behavior changed. She became more secretive and avoided direct answers to my questions. One day I noticed Jennifer and Ben spending time together without our daughter. They began to spend more and more time together, and their meetings became more intense and regular. My suspicions intensified, and I began to suspect that there might be more than just friendship between them. I decided to work up the courage to talk to Jennifer about my concerns. When we were alone, I asked her what was going on and why her relationship with Ben had become so close. Jennifer denied any improper relationship and claimed that they were just good friends. As I pondered how to move forward after discovering the possible betrayal, Jennifer and Ben apparently decided to conspire to come up with an excuse for their close relationship. They knew that I was beginning to suspect them, and they did their best to justify their actions and convince me that I was wrong. Jennifer began to show more concern for me, trying to be more welcoming and attentive. She constantly emphasized that our relationship remained her first priority and that she would always be there for me. She deliberately created an image of a caring and devoted wife to assuage my suspicions. Ben, on the other hand, became even more attentive to our common activities and entertainment. He suggested that I spend more time together to emphasize that his intentions were pure and that he had no ulterior motives. He tried diligently to show that our meetings and friendships were completely innocent and had no ulterior motives. They also tried to create an appearance of normality in our relationship in the presence of our daughter. They continued to act naturally and did not hint at anything between them. This was their way of convincing me that everything was fine and that my suspicions were wrong. They made up stories and excuses to explain their closeness and the time they spent together. No matter what they said, my heart still suspected that something was wrong with the story. I knew I had to be careful not to fall for the tricks and allow myself to be fooled. I watched as Jennifer and Ben continued to spend a lot of time together, and their excuses began to sound more and more fantastic. I knew they were hiding something, and my suspicion grew every day. One day when I got home earlier than usual, I found Jennifer and Ben having a serious conversation. I saw them talking in whispers until they noticed my presence. They halted frightened and began to thrash about, trying to think of excuses for their illicit intercourse. I approached them, a mixed feeling of anger and betrayal making my heart beat faster. I asked Jennifer what was going on and why she was hiding her communication with Ben from me. At first, she confusedly began to explain that they were just discussing some business matters, but her nervousness and insecurity indicated that she was hiding the truth. Suddenly, Ben interjected and said that Jennifer had approached him for help in arranging a surprise birthday party for me. He claimed that they had been spending time together to plan it, so things seemed suspicious. Jennifer confirmed what he said and said she didn't want me to find out and ruin the surprise. I was stunned and confused by this explanation. Part of me wanted to believe them, but something inside me screamed that they were trying to hide something more. My inner voice told me that all these reasons and excuses were just an attempt to confuse me and hide my infidelity. My birthday was supposed to be 4 months later, so it was a silly excuse as to how they even came up with such a silly excuse. I decided I couldn't take their explanation at face value. I realized that I needed more time and information to make sense of the situation. My suspicion didn't go away, and I was willing to keep investigating to find out the truth and find out what was going on between Jennifer and Ben. As I thought back over past events and thought about what was happening now, I began to recall moments when I might have found signs of infidelity, but I didn't give them much thought. I remembered various situations that now seemed suspicious, but then I just wrote them off as coincidence or insignificant details. For example, I remembered one time when Jennifer and Ben were sitting together in a cafe, smiling at each other as if they were talking about something special. I assumed at the time that they were just discussing some common funny story or something funny and didn't give it much thought. I thought it was just good company and friendly intimacy. Also, on hikes and trips together, they would often go off on their own to gather brushwood or go swimming together when I didn't want them to. Often they would sit by the fire together until morning, perhaps knowing how soon I would drift off to sleep after drinking a bottle of beer. I also remembered that they sometimes called each other, texting together. But I thought it was just friendly conversations or discussing some common business, and I didn't think about the possibility that there might be more to it than that. Heck, I remembered so many times when they were alone together, but I never paid attention to it. I was blind and stupid. I trusted them so much that I couldn't see anything around me. My hands were shaking when I decided to check Jennifer's correspondence. It was the last step I would take to find out the truth about what was going on between her and Ben. I couldn't ignore my suspicions any longer, and fear gripped me as I opened her messages. It wasn't easy for me to get into Jennifer's phone, as I had never done that in my life, and I regretted it. And there, on the phone screen, I saw something I didn't expect. Jennifer's correspondence with Ben turned out to be more than just ordinary communication, but something much bigger. They had actually dated years ago, before we were married. I read their letters where they told each other how they felt and the passion they had for each other. Everything I knew about our family began to crumble in my mind. I felt my heart tear into pieces and pain seep into every cell of my being. Learning that our daughter, whom I had loved and raised as my own, was Ben's child was unbearable. I sat on the edge of the bed, slowly inhaling and exhaling air, trying to comprehend everything I had just learned. My thoughts swirled around me, and I realized that our family, our marriage, was all based on a lie. Feelings of anger, resentment, and betrayal overwhelmed me. I couldn't imagine how Jennifer could have deceived me all these years by keeping this terrible secret. I felt that my trustworthiness and love had been yanked from me, leaving only a bitter sense of disappointment. Thinking back on past events, I suddenly remembered how quickly I learned of Jennifer's pregnancy. We were both joyful and excited, and I happily assumed that this was our shared miracle, our long-awaited addition to the family. I never suspected that the baby growing inside Jennifer could have been Ben's. I never doubted my role as a father and happily prepared for the arrival of our baby boy. Every beat of his heartbeat, every movement I felt under my hand on Jennifer's belly only strengthened our bond and love. Now all those memories seemed like an illusion, a false picture of a happy future. I felt the destruction within me, the mixture of emotions from joy to bitterness. How could Jennifer so coldly hide the truth from me? What had gotten her to maintain this lie all these years? All this time, when I was happy and carefree, when I thought our family was perfect, I didn't see or understand the signs of cheating. I trusted Jennifer completely and could not imagine that she was capable of such cruel lies. After meeting Emily, I decided to ask her if she knew about Ben and my wife. It turned out that she had already filed for divorce from Ben because she had been living with this truth for 6 months and couldn't tell me. She knew how much I loved Jennifer and understood that I would never believe what she said. Also, Ben warned her that they were ready for her to act. So it was useless. They knew that I might find out the whole truth, so they prepared in advance to present their arguments. I wasn't just shocked. I realized that I had been living a deception on two people I loved and cared about all along. But the one thing I didn't understand, why Why didn't they tell everything right away and live peacefully together? Why do it in secret? Emily and I discussed our plan for a long time. At first, it wasn't easy to come up with something that would expose Jennifer and Ben, but wouldn't make them suspicious. So we decided to take advantage of an opportunity when I could get away with my daughter to my mother's for the weekend. On Friday night, when it was time for my departure, I spent the semblance of packing and saying goodbye to Jennifer and my daughter. In the back of my mind, it was hard to see how I could participate in such a plan, but I knew we had to expose everything in order to move forward. Following the plan, I went to my mother's house, but returned much earlier, leaving my daughter in Emily's care. When I got home, my heart was racing. I was afraid to see what I had long refused to admit to myself. My hand trembled as I put the key in the lock and carefully opened the door. Silence reigned in the apartment, and I moved slowly down the hallway toward the bedroom. My heart was in my chest, as if ready to pound out. I pulled the bedroom door ajar and saw them. Jennifer and Ben were lying in our bed. I came at the moment of their intimacy, and I couldn't imagine what I would ever see in my life. There was insight in their eyes, as if they had found what they had been looking for a long time. My soul clenched in pain and grief, but I was relieved along with it. The truth had been exposed, and I could no longer close my eyes to it. "What does that mean? What the hell, Jennifer?" My voice sounded quiet, but penetrating. They turned around and saw me standing in the doorway of the room. Their eyes reflected embarrassment and fear. Jennifer got out of bed, trying to gather her thoughts.
Mike, I can explain.
I thought there was trust between us. You have fallen in my eyes. Both of you. Jennifer tried to talk to me, but it was useless. She was wrapped in the sheets we were given for the wedding, and I was so disgusted to see her that I couldn't even stay there a minute. When I calmed down, I filed the divorce papers and decided to find out the whole truth from Jennifer. Why she married me and not Ben. The Jennifer story took a completely unexpected turn when she finally confessed her dark plans. I listened to her words with great shock and disbelief. All this time I thought our love was real and mutual, but it turned out I was just part of her calculated game. Jennifer admitted that she had planned the whole thing from the beginning. When she got pregnant with Ben and he refused to acknowledge the baby, she decided it would be better for her to marry me. At the time, Ben and I didn't know each other. Her decision was based on my financial stability and high social status, which could provide her and the baby a comfortable life. After a while, Ben found Jennifer through me when he took a job at my company and supposedly met my wife. Jennifer hated him at first, but she has loved only him all her life. So if you do the math, I lived a lie for almost the entire time of my friendship with Ben. Listening to it all, I felt like I had been deceived and used. My heart was in pieces, and I couldn't believe that the man I loved so much was capable of such cruel acts. But I realized that I couldn't stay in such a relationship based on lies and manipulation. I decided to permanently sever all ties with Jennifer and begin a new chapter in my life in which honesty and sincerity would come first. I have a warm relationship with my daughter. I have never admitted to her that she is not my own, but I will always consider her my own daughter.